IT Podcast with myself, James Kimbley, the founder of Kimbley IT, and Carl Heath, the Director of Technology, who's been sitting in his car for the last 4 hours. Welcome.
Yep. Thanks. I've been all the way to Warrington and back again for nothing.
Warrington's just below Liverpool, and you've travelled up from Telford.
Telford, yeah, for nothing. Wasted time by somebody. Not my business, for my partner's business, and they just couldn't even be bothered to respond. How rude.
Well, tell us the whole story, because that's kind of part of the story. So your partner, she runs a wedding dressing business.
Yeah, a wedding event hire business. You'll dress your wedding, make it look like certain themes. She'd bought a post box. It was a type of post box, James. And I was due to go to Warrington to give a talk to a group of guys who I got in contact with on Friday just to check that I could still go, and they couldn't make it. However, I'd already agreed to, because I was in Warrington, pick up this post box and pay for it. So I went up there this morning to pick it up and pay for it. And then the person in question said, "Oh, I'm not going to be there today. You'll have to come on Wednesday." And I've come all the way from Telford for it. And then they can't even be bothered now to respond to any messages, any contact on it. These are when you travel, and travel wastes time. So the less we do with traveling, the better we are.
You didn't check beforehand, and because it's already been arranged and booked in?
That's right. And now I do normally double check. But Kat said to me, I've been in contact with this person. Yep, it's all been sorted out. They're going to be there. So I didn't double check because I thought that had been done.
I guess it's one of those little red letter boxes that people put their cards into.
Yeah, you got it. Something like that. I didn't know exactly what it was, but something like that you put your wedding card into when you're at a wedding to say, here's 20 quid, have a fabulous life.
Okay. Well, after that, let's just recap what we did in the last week then.
So yeah, I've wasted some of this week, but let's see what we did last week and see if that was any more productive, shall we?
Well, Monday you had to do not an emergency call out, but an urgent call out to a client, because it turned out that they were using a device that didn't have great antennae in it, and it was struggling with the new Wi-Fi to connect to new Wi-Fi. So we had to go and put in another temporary Wi-Fi hotspot until the proper works takes place.
Yes. Right. The device in question was actually an OBDI reader for Mercedes, part of Mercedes Star system, which interrogates the vehicles. And you have to get the Mercedes laptop, and then you have to program the Star device that connects to the car. No matter what I did, James, I could not program that Star device to accept the new Wi-Fi that we'd created.
Oh, that was correct. Yeah, it didn't like the new Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the range wasn't great either, but I knew by taking out another UniFi access point and plugging that in that we could get the range extended. That wasn't a problem. No, the main problem was it was connected to the old Wi-Fi, and no matter what I did, could not get it to work. And I had the instruction manual and everything for once. They had all the paperwork and everything. It's not a great design, so it'll have to go to Mercedes tech support. So I had to recreate the old Wi-Fi network's name and SSID key. And then, of course, it would connect. So we got a workaround, but it wasn't a great workaround, but it works. Frustrating.
Will that have to go back to Mercedes again once we get the proper Wi-Fi network installed in their location?
It will do. Well, what will happen is you have to book a support call with Mercedes. So I have to go through the process of raising a ticket on a help desk and then booking and allocating an engineer who can connect in and things like that. It's not something you can do instantly. That's why they couldn't do it on the day. It has to be booked.
It's strange, these Wi-Fi networks and crappy old computers that they use. What I don't get is why these car manufacturers use like Windows XP machines.
No, I don't know. This one's a 7. It's one of the better ones. This is, James. This is one of the better pieces of kit. It's actually a proper rugged laptop that's designed to be used with this device. So it's a better piece of kit, but it equally has its own problems.
And also last week, we did an upgrade at your house because your Wi-Fi in the area that you work at home was too weak, and it was playing up on the past podcast. You were getting a bit robotic, so we got Matt, who does our cabling, to come in and install a proper cable to run from your broadband connection to the area you work in.
That's right. You can do wonderful things with Wi-Fi. However, there are occasions in which you can't beat a cable. And so I knew having a cable was the right deal because it was just not good enough. Got the cable in. It's a lot better, I think. You tell me, because it was hard for me to see because I'm at this end of it. But I believe it's a lot better because my download speeds are now back to what they should be.
Yeah, your connection is way better. You're not pixelated anymore and you're not going robotic. We might have a problem today with my broadband playing up.
We'll have to wait and see on that one.
And see if it disconnects or not. But it's been playing up the last 4 days or so.
Yeah.
And it went a bit earlier today, actually, before we got on this call. Hopefully it'll get fixed shortly.
Yeah, I also at the same company last week had the joyous task of having new photocopiers. Now, normally that's a nightmare waiting to happen. So another company comes in, they change the copiers, none of the drivers work, they plug it into the network, none of the details are right. Got to say on this occasion, although that company did send us a bit of a crappy form in Excel, everything went in smoothly, everything went right, it worked.
Yeah, well, they emailed me the form and I rightly delegated it to you to fill in.
And I filled it in perfectly and it went well. It was a good working experience with that company. That's rare when those things go like that. It went very well.
Well, they did.
I found the advancements in copiers. I've seen what's happened. There's been a big change.
Pardon?
Big change in copiers.
Okay, why is this?
They're in black now.
Oh, they're not beige anymore.
Nope. They've moved on to black. You remember when PCs went black 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, copiers have gone black. Nothing else has changed. Just black. Slightly smaller, maybe a bit smaller in size. Not much.
It's interesting to know.
Bold move though. Steve likes it. Black fits.
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would stick with beige for such a long time.
No. But what we discovered an interesting fact when we were discussing these copiers this week. And I was chatting with one of the women who works at our client. Why are you printing so much? Because she told me how much they pay to print. I said, that's a lot.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me this.
Yeah, that's a lot of printing.
Because we have a general rule, only print you need to post it.
That's right. And some companies need to print a bit, but this was crazy. They were printing thousands a month. They were paying to print. I was like, what are you guys doing? I don't understand. And they explained to me that the car manufacturers, and these are high-end car manufacturers, I don't know which one specifically. It could be Porsche, Mercedes, McLaren. It could be any of those. In order to prove in their world that you've repaired the car to their manufacturer's guidelines, you have to open on their website the manufacturer's repair manual and print it, all of it, no matter how long it is. 2 pages, 60 pages. You have to print it and then file it in a paper file in a filing cabinet for auditing at some point in the future by an individual from the manufacturer. And so that's what they do.
And because of that, they waste a lot of paper, a lot of ink, and they also have to take space up for their filing cabinets.
Yes, and if they do the same repair twice, which is highly likely, you're going to do the same repair twice, like a damaged wing and a front bumper.
Rear end.
You have to print it again.
Yep.
Even though you might have done that repair 100 times in a year and your engineers could do it back to front, inside out.
How often do they audit?
How often?
Yeah, the car companies audit.
I don't know specifically, James, but I know from the time we've worked with this company, and we've worked with this company now still on probably about a quarter of a year. I've seen one manufacturer's person there 3 times.
Okay, so they are visiting.
Yep, very regular from this one manufacturer. And I understand they've got a principle of quality to adhere to. Totally get that, and that's an important thing in what you're doing. That it's repaired to the quality and standard that manufacturer sells that car at. However, it seemed crazy that you can't keep a PDF version, and it electronically says, yes, James accessed this manual repair guide at this time and printed it electronically. Therefore, it's now James's responsibility to do it to that standard.
Yeah, it should all be electric. That should be all
electronic. And I can't see how a piece of paper proves it anyway. It doesn't, does it? It can't prove that you did it that way.
Yeah, printing off a manual doesn't prove you anything at all.
Yeah, it's crazy. So there's clearly an issue there in that industry where they need to prove that people are repairing cars to the standard that they tell them to, but they've got no way of actually doing it.
And we all know that the manual is just the manufacturer's opinion.
Go on, expand on that. They do.
So like when you get an IKEA manual, you get any type of manual, that's the manufacturer's opinion on the way you should do something, the way you should put it together. The way you do it might be different.
However, you can't repair back to factory specification if you don't follow the manufacturer's guide.
That's true.
I know what you're saying. Let's say in that repair guide, it will feature things like torque settings for nuts and things like that. So there'll be torques that you should put things back to and stuff like that.
And certain order that you've got to put things in.
Correct, yeah. And tolerances and gaps between body panels and stuff like that. That's what it's doing. But the point is, it's not proving that they're doing that.
Yeah.
And it's wasting so much paper, and it costs this company a lot of money. They have to have a nice expensive contract on their copier because they're printing thousands per month in order to facilitate this. And there's no answer for what happens if the building burns down. which could be why they have quite a draconian policy on what happens after hours in that company.
They got sprinklers?
No. But they'd just be sodden anyway. They just have sodden paper.
Not the idea, is it? Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? So, yeah, I saw that weird waste of weird thing. And talking of weird things, we might go straight onto your Virgin weird thing today while we're on weird things.
Yeah, so when I was telling you about the Virgin problems that I'm having earlier, the Virgin Home Hub is probably the finest example of crappy UI design that you will ever see. What colour's Virgin's logo?
I believe red.
Colour? Red.
They base it around a red.
Exactly. And because it's so important, that colour to them, a Virgin Home Hub has a status light on the device to say that everything's working okay. In a normal world, what colour would that be? If you were doing good UI design, what colour would a light bulb be that says everything is okay, it's all working well?
Green for go. Green means go. They say it on Paw Patrol. Green means go.
Green for go. Not for Virgin.
No.
The red is that important that the light is a solid red light, and that means everything is okay, everything is working perfectly. But okay, you're using the red light. So what are you going to use? What color are you going to use when there's a problem? Maybe you'd use the yellow light. Rather, if you're not using the red light, just use the yellow light. Some kind of caution colored light.
Yellow means caution.
Yeah. Not for Virgin.
No.
If there's a problem on your Home Hub, it's a green flashing light. And all the other warning lights are also green as well. So yeah, of course, that naturally makes sense to most people. Not.
Does cock a hoop? I'd love to know who decided that, whether that's a mistake or that's just some sort of stupid branding issue.
That's definitely branding, that is.
You know,
branding.
You posted this morning on LinkedIn a picture of somebody who's doing a talk where they have a spin on a cryptic error message that comes up on the screen, and it's inferring that people don't.
What the people see, when someone sees an error message on the computer, problem with a computer message, it gives you a positive and a negative. Okay, and a cancel's not even really a negative. A cancel's just like okay, but no one hits cancel. Everyone will hit okay, and that's because of the word okay in UI design. You just hit okay. Sounds fine. It's not a warning sign. It's not really telling me there's a problem. It's not saying it's like an emergency here that you must not click this button. Okay. Click okay. Sounds good. When's okay ever been a bad thing? When have you ever spoken to somebody and they've warned you about something by saying okay?
Yeah, you're right. They don't. Okay is not a term that I would tell you not to do something. I would not be telling my daughters if it's danger, okay. Okay, it's not the first thing I'm going to shout at them.
That's one of the main problems you have in IT, and this is why people get caught out, because you get a box that pops up that says okay or cancel, a load of crap in there because it's been written by a technician rather than a copywriter. So it's just all technical. You don't know what it means. You just hit okay, piss off. Okay, I want to carry on with what I'm doing. Get out of my way.
I agree. And here is the dichotomy of this situation. We have both ends of the spectrum. That error message or whatever error message in Windows should be written by a copywriter that might say, this has gone wrong. Really, you shouldn't carry it. Don't go onto this web page. It's dangerous. Go back.
Yeah. Google Chrome has better ones than on its warning pages about proceeding. It advises you not to proceed and what could happen if you do proceed when you go to a website which they suspect's been hacked or it's got an invalid certificate. They don't go on about the certificate being invalid and all that because it doesn't mean anything to anyone else. They basically say, if you continue to this web page, there's a possibility that someone might be able to see the data you're entering. They might be able to steal your credit card number. They might be able to do some other stuff. Do you want to proceed? And then they ask you the question afterwards if you want to proceed or not.
No, you're right. They do. I was putting together some work for a presentation the other day, and I was doing some phishing emails. So I was spoofing emails from you to me using a tool online. And straight away, Gmail has a great big red banner that says, this message is dangerous. It purports to come from somebody that it says it's Kimbley IT, but it isn't, because I'm faking it. And it doesn't go into any kind of tech detail. It just says this message is probably dangerous.
And then you get the user's paradox, where even though they've got that warning, it probably won't happen to me, so I'm going to click proceed anyway.
Well, that's understood, James. But at least the UI was quite clear in Gmail. Yeah. It was quite clear. It's red for danger, not red for good. Red for danger, and don't
made for anyone to understand. It's simple language.
Now, the opposite thing we've got here with the Virgin item is that some marketeer has been let loose on the warning messages and gone, we've got to stay on brand, red. Now, that's gone too far in the wrong direction. Now, that's useless messaging. That's pointless.
Yeah.
In an episode of The Simpsons, you can look it up. Homer has an alarm system he invents that constantly sounds at 100 decibels to tell you everything's all right, which is a bit annoying.
Which is exactly what the Virgin Home Hub is.
It's just stupid. And so we need to find a common ground, because you're right. User messages in IT tend to be way too complicated and written by techies who haven't got a clue. And then you let somebody do it and they've gone too far the other direction and made it pointless.
Well, generally, when you go against traffic lights, everyone knows what traffic lights are. Everyone knows what pedestrian crossing lights mean. Red, stop, green, go. If your UI is doing the opposite of that, you've got a problem. And you shouldn't be going any further.
So I'm pulling a face here because I've just swigged the last bit of my tea to find the tea bags burst. So I've got a mouthful of tea now. Not very nice. Don't say you shouldn't drink tea or I don't drink tea or whatever.
Water, provided by Pensar again.
But
yeah, don't go against traffic lights. Don't go against common designs.
Even in China.
Used to, and they are subconsciously aware of, and you don't, when you see a traffic light, you don't actively think about it. It's just subconscious now. Yeah. That's how implanted it is. So you should never go against that in a design.
Yeah. So that was a bad bug, wasn't it? There's a couple of things that bothered us. What else have we done last week?
Last week was pretty quiet. We went out for a meal because we were having a meeting with a client, but unfortunately they couldn't make it, so we turned it into a board meeting instead.
Yeah, it was conveniently close to your house.
Yeah, I know, it's weird that, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll have to make sure the next one's in Ironbridge, I think.
Nah.
Yeah.
It's a good restaurant over here. That's why we had to come.
It's great. There's some great ones over here.
You told me you hadn't found one yet.
Oh, I have now.
All of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Food. My critique on that one, the egg was all right. The crispy duck egg was all right, but it didn't really taste too much.
To be fair,
my burger was poorly seasoned.
It wasn't as good as the time I'd been before.
My burger was not seasoned well. It didn't taste very good.
It wasn't as good as the time previously, which was absolutely excellent. It wasn't as good this time round.
Chef was on an off day, or a different chef, perhaps.
I don't know, maybe because it was lunchtime, and the times I've been before has always been evening dinner times.
Lunchtime chef's not as good.
It would seem so.
Yeah, that would be it. Yeah, and outside of that, I have been to a charity ball event on Saturday night in Milton Keynes.
And you had a IT...
Yeah.
Well, not an IT issue, but they had a technical problem anyway.
There was a definite technical problem. On Friday night, I received an email from the CEO of the charity cordially inviting me to open a PDF file, saying it's in OneDrive. Now, the moment I try and open it. Yeah, the moment I try and open it on my phone, Android goes, that's not OneDrive. It's actually in sharefile.com. So it straight away warns me in Gmail that this isn't hosted where it purports it's coming from. And
then you did what you should have done. You backed away and left it alone.
That's exactly right. No, I didn't do that technically because that's what we don't. We investigate. We boldly go where other people shouldn't go. So I followed it on, James.
Ideally on a virtual machine, not on your live device.
That's right. No, I didn't want a live device. I know what I was doing.
I got told off the last time I did it on my live device, and then all
you did it on a Windows computer. That really was rolling the dice.
Windows computer's got antivirus built in, and Android phone hasn't.
I knew it wasn't going to do that.
How do you know?
I had my suspicions what it would do, and I was correct. It sent me to a web page, which then had a picture of a PDF which said log in with your details, and it tried to make it look like it was Office 365, but you could see the URL in the top of it anyway, so it gave it away.
Well, you'd never get any far anyway. We don't use Office 365. So you've got nothing to enter.
There was an option for other. There was another one. If you don't use Office 365, there was other. So I filled in the bump. I filled it with some bump rubbish, username and password, and then it gave me a real PDF of some Merrill Lynch stocks and stats for 2019.
Well, that's interesting because Merrill Lynch, as far as I'm aware, they don't even exist anymore.
Well, maybe it wasn't Merrill Lynch. That's the first. It was an American banking thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I think pretty certain they went bust in the shortly after the banking crisis.
You probably did, but their brand name remains in my mind for that. Now, the problem was that I spotted straight away that this was likely to be a hacked email account of the CEO, because I sent a quick text to a few other people who were going to the charity event and said, "Have you had this email?" And they went, "Yes, yes." One of them said, I can't open it, but that's because they can't open attachments. They can't open anything. So luckily they were protected by their inability to open anything.
And that helped them. Sometimes that's a very powerful defense mechanism, that.
Yeah, not being able to do it. And then another person I know in the group opened it and almost filled in the details and stopped at the last second before they got to the point of filling it in and then thought and went, no, I won't.
When it asked for the account number after the sort code, that kind of
it was pretty
changed their mind.
But the hardest part was telling the person who ran the business, who sent this out, you've been hacked. You're a charitable organization. You need to get some advice from me. Let me give you some advice. You really do need to do something about your IT. And I've had nothing back.
Wasn't this charitable organisation someone that we did actually talk to at one point about becoming a client?
Yep.
Well, they've successfully ruled themselves out of that now then.
No, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
And it's an example of, disappointingly, it's an example of where there's no interest. They're just not nobody I spoke to was really that bothered. I was trying to tell them what this was, and this was clearly a hacked email where I think the hacker was watching the content of the email, knew there was an event on, and targeted that email on the Friday night before the event deliberately to break into the accounts of people who were attending the event on the basis that they would probably have some money.
This is the interesting part here. The interesting part is this is pure selfishness on behalf of the charity. So the charity's being hacked. They're getting emails sent out that are faked to look like them. You've warned them about it. They don't care because they've not lost anything for it. And they're basically saying, okay, these people have paid £180 for their tickets that have come down to this charitable ball. We don't give a shit about them. We couldn't care less if they got an email off us and they gave over more details and had money stolen from them, even though it came from us. It was faked from our weak email system. We really don't care about them. They said that by not getting back in contact with you or making any acknowledgement of it to anybody. They're happy to take the money off all the people that have come along, all the guests, but they have no interest in protecting these people from getting attacked by people taking advantage of these people's goodwill to be part of the charity.
I agree with you. I know personally the person who's the CEO of this charity, and they're a great person. However, that doesn't mean, as a policeman might say to you when you're caught speeding, ignorance is no reason for breaking the law. You're right. They may be focused on getting all the money for the children. That's the basis of the charity, and that's a great thing. However, you're absolutely right. It's at the expense of those people who provide that funding, because you can't overlook the fact that that's important. You need to protect your benefactors as much as anybody else.
Oh yeah, without benefactors you don't have a charity, but also I could successfully argue they don't really care about the people they're looking after as part of the charity either, because all that takes is a hacked email to come from the boss to maybe the person who looks after the finance, asking them to transfer some money. They fall for it, they transfer the money, and the charity's out of business.
I agree with you. No, you're absolutely right, James. That's a great example. That is a great example of where that kind of lackadaisical attitude towards security that I saw from not only, I've not had a reply from the person in the charity on the email I sent to them, and it's still Monday now, and I thought I would get something. And the lackadaisical attitude shown by those people I spoke to at the event anecdotally about it, who know me, just like blasé about it. They don't understand it. And there's a massive gulf here of people who are running businesses who don't understand anything about IT at all, 20 years in, still don't understand a thing, and can't be asked to say anything about it. They literally ignore it.
Yeah, if their attitude, if we ignore it, it didn't exist, it didn't happen.
But what's crazy, James, is, and you know from your chuckles to me about the books I've read or the events I've attended that are in there to help you grow your businesses, all those kind of things that I'm involved in. And you're like, Carl, it's quite simple. And you'll tell me our business is quite simple. And I go, you know what, James, I like the way you've put that. Here's all these people who are involved in all these programs, good to great, improving yourself, all these things that you should do to become a better leader and your vision and your values and your mission. And yet with IT, there's a massive, great big elephant in the room, to use that expression. There's a massive thing that no one understands, and yet no one can put their hand up and say, I don't know what the hell any of this is. Please help. I have no idea I've got an IT company, right? I haven't got a bloody clue what they're talking about. I haven't got a clue. They talk techno babble at me. Don't know what they're doing. I have no idea. How vulnerable are businesses to IT people? IT people can destroy businesses if they want to by their incompetence or their laziness or their inability, because all the owners of the business trust some IT person or trust nobody, don't even bother. and they're massively vulnerable to IT people, of which many of them are half-wits.
This leads on to what we were talking about earlier in the week about I want to produce a thing called a transparency report, because it's become quite obvious to us that end users have literally no idea the visibility an IT company has on the companies they're looking after.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
We see absolutely everything that's going on. We know where they're going on the internet. We know exactly what they're using their computer for, what time they're using it, everything. But they don't have this visibility at all. So what we want to do is, over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be producing a thing called, at the moment, it's a work in progress transparency report. We're actually just going to put it out there exactly what we can see, what we can control, what we can do. And based on that data, also what we can deduce about the end person as well, because we don't need a full picture to be able to work out what a person, deduce what a person's up to. You just need parts of that picture that you can quite easily link together. And it's really just to be brought out there as an open, transparent document for people to see, and maybe hopefully shock some people into what an actual IT company can see and how detailed it is, and just to get awareness out there that people don't have. It's like the security; they don't have awareness of security. They don't have awareness of what can actually be viewed.
I don't understand what it is that we're going to need to do. I like the idea of the report, because you're absolutely right. From the first time I ever implemented a shared internet connection in 1998, I remember there was a young man who used his computer and I could see what he was looking at online because I could see all the logs. So you did. Yeah. And it was outside of what the boss wanted. The boss was like, this guy's not performing on the sales phone calls. What's he doing on the internet in the day? I'd have a look. Okay. He's browsing AmazonianWomen.com in the afternoon, not doing his work because he's on the porn on the internet. That was a classic example. But it was funny because that was something that was probably pretty private to that young man. And he had no idea that I could see what his interest was.
There wasn't, this in Kimbley IT, but the company that we use to monitor software and stuff like that mentioned in part of their sales pitches that they once were monitoring a customer, and they saw that the finance director had a gambling habit. Not a good thing for a finance director to have. So, of course, they had to report that to the MD, which was a surprise for the MD.
Yep.
But the MD was appreciative of that, and he was able to he got rid of his finance director. You can't have someone in charge of your finance who's got a gambling addiction, who's online on betting websites and those fake casino websites, gambling away money.
No.
There's a lot of security in the visibility that we have. But the whole report's there just to get people to be aware of what IT companies can see.
Yeah.
And if the stuff you don't want us to see, well, don't do it on a work computer. Go do it on your own device somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's not particularly that I want to see it. I've spent 20 years in this business, and I'm not particularly interested in what people get up to. It's pretty easy to know.
However, everyone thinks they're interesting, but they're not interesting at all to us.
No, I don't have any interest in that, but I do have an interest in maintaining. If my responsibility is to help your business stay safe online and maintain stability and let you do what you want to do, then there's occasion in which I'm going to go, right, you can't go to these websites.
Our number one priority is to protect a client's data. That's their IP. That's where all their value is. We do anything to protect that data. Anything that's necessary, we'll do, and that's why we have these insights.
Yeah, and it is fascinating that they don't see it. And in the same way that I have had people ask me opinions of IT people who work for a company, or to give an opinion of another third-party company, and I've seen that they're not doing anything in their job. It's bleeding obvious they're not doing anything. And they're, but they are. They're doing this and they're working on that. And I'm like, they're not doing anything, and they haven't done anything in ages.
It's very small things, because over the years, I've been able to predict when an employee to client is going to get fired 6 months before the client's actually fired them, because I can see that they're not doing their work properly. And it can be small things. So this one employee, every time I'd visit their office, the icons on their desktop would be in a slightly different place. They were like moving them around, as like kind of putting a pattern on their desktop. And I was just thinking, well, if you're doing that, you clearly have no work to do, because you're sitting around putting the icons into batches on your desktop. 6 months later they'd gone, because it turns out they were doing no work and they were sleeping at their desk at every opportunity they could get.
Sleeping at their desk.
Yeah,
that's a class one.
But it's also one thing that businesses don't harness the power that IT companies have, in that we can give really good advice, because we're going into lots of different companies and we know what works and what doesn't work. setups that work. I'm not talking about technical here. I'm talking about personnel setups, type of people to hire, those kind of things. But we get to see loads because we just walk. When you're an IT guy, you can walk into any company. That's another thing with security. No one ever questions you either. You can just walk in anywhere.
Yeah, you're right. You can walk in, you see all sorts of stuff. People tell you all sorts of things. They share, like I've had loads of information shared with me over the years of all different conversations and things by people. They just tell you the life story.
Yeah, you're kind of like a hairdresser.
Kind of.
And they'll tell you talk to hairdressers, everyone will just open up and tell a hairdresser anything because it doesn't matter. But they think the same for an IT guy.
It's true. I asked that of a head when I was in my haircut, and apparently that happens. Like they get the whole sub story, like real horrible stuff happening, and they just put it out.
Yeah, and that's what IT people get when they walk into offices.
And yet, but the big problem, James, is that most IT people, 99% of them don't talk in the same language that people who are MDs and sales directors and finance directors do.
Yep.
They can't communicate. They either talk too tech, or they just see them go, you're not.
Or maybe other IT companies don't get the same level as us then, because I don't talk tech at all.
No, I'm not saying that you do.
No, but that makes me more open to people because these people, the people we look after, they don't understand tech, so they're not talking tech to me either. But if I came in and started talking really techie to somebody, I doubt they'd open up to me as much as they normally do.
No, you're probably not. I didn't used to talk tech.
So that's why we get great insights of businesses, and we're able to work out predictions about how they're going to go before it happens.
Yeah, I didn't used to talk tech overly in my career. I was known for trying to put it in as plain English as possible for them, and also having people say, you didn't come here solely to sell me something. When you told me to get me something, there was a reason that I needed it, and so I listened to you because there was a lot of trust.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of the other guys I worked with in my teams who couldn't communicate with customers was because they couldn't get out of talking about IP addresses and Ethernet and hardware drivers and all that kind of classic IT crowd stuff. They couldn't get past it. And it's a massive problem at the board level, because it's not just the techs at the first level. This is your IT managers and IT directors who can't talk to the MDs and CEOs. And this is why all the MDs and CEOs haven't got a clue about technology and don't know diddly about it. Certainly if they're over 40.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, under 40s, under 30s, I don't know. Do you think, James, that the generation of CEOs coming up now who are under 30, who may not be CEOs yet, but will be in a couple of years, are going to be completely different because they do get it?
They get it more. And there's the big reason for this is they were born when computers were common.
Right.
People over 40. And so when they were born, computers weren't common in schools. You might have had one. You may have sometimes had a BBC Micro or something like that. But you didn't really get to go on it a lot. You didn't get to learn computers. So you didn't, when you're young, that's when you generate your interests and what the things you're interested in. And you didn't have much technology back then. You didn't have a mobile phone or anything like that. You had no handhelds. You may have had like an Atari Afterburner handheld game, but it's just one game. It's just Afterburner, which was a good game. But, it's not going to hook everybody. And even now, technology is going to hook people, but they've grown up having to use technology their whole life because they've all got smartphones. They all have to use a mobile phone. They all have some idea. And that's why cloud is awesome, because they all understand cloud, because they understand that their photos aren't stored on the phone. They're stored on Google Photos or Apple Photos or somewhere like that. And they get the whole concept of that.
Yeah, and the older generation don't.
Yeah.
And this is becoming a big problem because I don't know the percentage statistics of CEOs and MDs that are between 40 and 60, but my
dying out.
Evidence tells me it's most of them.
Yeah, but they're dying out.
Well, they're going to die out faster, I think, as well, than they would have done 20 years ago.
Yeah, they will do, because they'll die out from old age and retirement and death.
Best way to die out is death.
Yeah, it normally works that way.
Very efficient.
It does. And then they'll be kicked out because they can't keep up with younger businesses.
That's what I'm suggesting with that. Yeah.
I know, yeah.
There are people running businesses now who are, say, 48, 49 MDs, and in 5 years' time, they're not going to do anything with tech because they don't get it, and they're going to find themselves really far behind some other younger competitors coming up who will use it to their advantage.
Yep. Well, hopefully my transparency report will help those guys, and they'll understand a bit more about it.
Yeah. What have I seen on LinkedIn? Right before this podcast started, somebody just called me out on LinkedIn and said, did you see some research team working up in Orkney had been looking at submarine data and collating all this data, 3D image data, for 3 months, and then the laptop got nicked off a desk in the building, and the USB disks that they're backed up to by the sound of it. and they're now offering a £1,500 reward for the laptop back because they've lost all the data they've been working for 3 months on.
Yep.
From underground submarine cameras.
And
I
get that back.
that whoever was responsible for that should be fired.
They probably have.
I hope so, because there's never any consequence, is there? It's always that what usually happens is, who's the IT company that's looking after that laptop? It's their fault they didn't put a backup on it.
Yeah.
And then the reality is, no, it's the person who was running that project's fault for not thinking about what would happen if they dropped the laptop in the sea or whatever happened, nicked.
Well, I'd say it's also the IT company's fault for not suggesting possibilities that could happen and what you should be covering against. So if someone came up to us and said, I'm getting this laptop, I'm going to be taking it out to sea, we're naturally going to say, okay, that's great. Don't get it wet once because the salt water is going to really screw that thing up. But the data on there, how are we going to back that up for you?
Yes.
In the end, it's only the data I care about.
This is the simplest of things, still missed, still overlooked. The simplest of things not backing up data makes BBC News.
Yep. Yeah, it happens all the time.
It's like Newsday.
It does happen a lot.
Yeah, it does. It's crazy. And like I said earlier today, you might as well take up smoking and not drive wearing a seatbelt because you won't get cancer and you won't crash. No one does that, though.
It's like no one turns their broadband off either.
Why? Because they don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
No. They don't need this internet thing. Turn it off. No way. So it's been a bit of a ranty podcast this week.
Yeah. I think we always have a mini rant, but we've just gone full on rant for the last 15 minutes or so. Have you got anything non-ranty that you want to add to the podcast?
I've been continuing...
Before we wrap up?
Yes, continuing to follow the stories of IT history. I've been watching the Man in the Machine documentary on Steve Jobs, which is on YouTube in high def. Very good.
Yep.
Very interesting. What a challenging man, that guy. If we didn't have that guy, we wouldn't have certain aspects of technology that we have in the world today. I'm sure they would have come around eventually, but they'd have come around in a different way. But at the same time, not a nice person, not a good father, not a good individual to work for. A classic example of a brilliant person who's flawed. Steve Jobs.
That's correct.
And then I watched documentaries on Mr. Gates, Mr. Bill Gates of Microsoft. Very different, different kind of person.
Yeah, Bill's a great guy.
In terms of flawed, not really. Driven, very driven, extremely business savvy, like really clever, above and technically savvy, but business savvy as well.
And aggressive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally aggressive. Totally wanting to get the position that he got. But also, you could see this part of the story when he meets his wife and he has children. And he has children later in life, like you and I have done. Well, not you so much as me, but more my age. And his desire to be philanthropic, his desire not to waste that money. Whereas Jobs, in the documentaries, you see him arguing about how he doesn't want to give anything to anybody, no bonuses. How he shafted Steve Wozniak at one point over the first deal they did on the Apple computer, where he told Wozniak that they made 300 quid, and so they gave him $150, and they made 7,000. And that he never recovered from that, Wozniak, from being shafted like that. Completely different individuals, yet they've both had a massive impetus on history, but in different ways. Good stuff on YouTube when you dig.
Yeah, there's good stuff on YouTube, and there's good stuff on Twitter as well, because we are, for the next 3 months, sponsoring the Brum Hour.
Hashtag Brum Hour. Yeah.
Hashtag Brum Hour for businesses. So if you don't know what that is, literally every single city in the country has one of these. The Birmingham Brum Hour is an hour on Sunday night from 8 p.m. onwards, where anyone with a business can tweet with the hashtag Brum Hour. Other businesses that follow that tweet will see your tweet and also get retweeted. And it's really just like an online networking event. And we use the advertising for brand awareness, and it seems to be working quite well.
Yes, and we're sponsoring it for 3 months. Is that right?
Yeah, we've already sponsored it for 2 months, so another 3 months that we've extended the sponsorship for.
Yeah, I've enjoyed doing that. I sit there on the sofa and I talk to people and tweet and retweet. And when I've been out and about in a traditional networking place, people have seen the logo on my shirt, on my hoodie, and gone, "Hey, you're the guys who sponsor Brum Hour."
Yeah,
and actually, James, one of the funny thing is they've said, "You're the guys that sponsor Brum Hour." Like, that's it. Like, they don't remember anyone else who sponsored it. It's us only.
Yeah, we've pretty much taken it over.
Yeah, well, that could well start to happen now.
Yep.
So yes, if you're listening to this, get on Brumhour, #Brumhour, and see, because even if you're not in the Birmingham region, there'll probably be one for wherever you are, and they're quite good.
There are definitely ones in different regions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there are. Yeah.
And it's not a thing you go on to sell your product. It's a thing on there to get to know people and just get brand awareness out. If you're looking to go on there to sell your product, you haven't got a clue what you're doing because you're doing your marketing wrong.
Yeah, I've been on there and given advice. I've been on there and just posted a load of helpful tips one time. I did videos on the other time, just did a few different things.
Yep.
So that you stand out, and it's worked.
So we just got to keep remembering. I keep forgetting about it on Sunday at 8 p.m.
Yes, you need to remember.
Yeah, I remembered yesterday, but I remembered at 9 p.m. yesterday, so I was an hour late.
Oops.
But apart from that, it was decent. I got some people replying back to me, even though I was an hour late.
I also had some feedback. Again, I haven't got to it yet, but it's next on my list. Bad Blood. Banky's read that one, James.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, said it was brilliant.
Yep. He must also follow Bill Gates' top 5 books to read of 2018.
I wouldn't be surprised if he got it from that. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he followed something like that. But he told me on Saturday night, what a great book.
Yeah, it is a good book. Bad Blood. There's actually a drama series coming out on it. I think HBO have released it in America.
Okay.
Like one of those docudrama kind of things.
Yeah.
Based off the book.
Oh, okay.
It'd be a while before it comes on Netflix or anywhere else, but just so you know.
That would have made a great American Crime Story. You never watched American Crime Story, did you?
I don't think so.
No. It's a docudrama. They did one for O.J. Simpson's trial, and the one before that was the assassination of Gianni Versace. Both excellent TV shows.
Okay.
Excellent.
What did you say, O.J. Simpson?
Yes.
Yeah, O.J. Simpson versus the People. I've seen that.
Yes, that's it. You watched that one?
Yeah.
Well, the follow-on to that was the assassination of Gianni Versace, which is about a serial killer called Andrew Cunanan, and it is brilliant. Really good.
Do you want to see a really interesting video on YouTube? So when O.J. Simpson returns home,
yes,
after and the police are there waiting for him.
Yep.
Kardashian, who's his lawyer, I can't remember what his first name is. What is it? Robert Kardashian, isn't it?
Kardashian, yes.
Yeah. So he's waiting there at the drive as his solicitor, and they get O.J. Simpson to come out of the car into his house so they can arrest him in his house rather than doing it in public.
Yep.
And O.J.'s got this clothing bag with him.
Yes.
Quite heavy. You can see it's heavy. It's full of clothes in there. It's given to Kardashian. Kardashian just walks off with it, gets into a car, drives off. It's never seen again.
That's right. And when you watch the video, he stood there, isn't he, with the private security guard, and he's waiting for his moment to leave. That bag's the bag full of bloody clothes. Yeah,
it's heavy, and there's a lot of stuff in that bag.
Yeah.
And there's something. Yeah, and he's walked off, and it's never ever seen again.
I found it fascinating, that whole docudrama and the whole way that worked, because at that point, I think Kardashian was acting out of blind faith to his friend.
Yeah, and you could, he pretty much admitted at the end that he believed O.J. Simpson was guilty, and you can see when they announced that he's not guilty, Kardashian's reaction is not a reaction of somebody who is a friend who is happy that you've been found not guilty.
Yep, and they re-invoked his lawyer's license as quickly as possible so that he could not be subpoenaed to give evidence against OJ.
Yep,
because he'd have broken down. He would have given it up. Yeah, I think it was a fascinating story. I remember living through it as a man in my early 20s when it happened, and then when you go back and visit it, it's absolutely fascinating that nobody got that bag and no one knows where that bag is.
No.
Robert died in 2003 or something like that. And then, of course, his family went on to do something completely different.
Yeah, become very, very rich.
Yeah, from God knows what. Weird backsides. And
definitely not the legal profession.
No. Master manipulators of social media and television and stuff.
Yep. If you want to learn how to do marketing on social media, you follow the Kardashians.
Terrible, isn't it, really?
But I think that's a good place to wind it up now, talking about the Kardashians. You can't go much further down than that.
You can't come back from the Kardashians, really, can you? So you might
exactly. So that's this week's podcast. It was a bit random. We'll probably do a bit more structure for next week. We've got some things going on that we can put into it. But I enjoyed it, and I know Carl did, because he always enjoys it. I don't know if you, the listener, enjoyed it, but hopefully you did. Leave some feedback and let us know.
Yeah, please tell us if we're waffling or whether any of this has any value at all.
we're going to continue anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. At some point, we'll get a listener.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm going to end it, and we will speak to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.